You're listening to Vantage Revival. Please enjoy this encore presentation of Season 1, Episode 7, 500 Days of Summer, originally uploaded September 25th of 2021.
Today on Vantage Revival, we watch a Dune entertainment film directed by Mark Webb, released in July 2009. We follow a non-linear 500 days of Tom, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Summer, played by Zooey Deschanel. From when they meet to when they break up. 500 Days of Summer, now playing on Vantage Revival.
How about you start this one?
What is there to say about this movie? So this was my pick, and I've seen it probably 3 times since it came out. Last one being 4-ish years ago.
3 times?
This movie is boring.
So how did you watch it 3 times and recommend it?
I think that maybe I was at a different place in my life personally, because it's not meant to be a love story, as it says at the very beginning. It's meant to be about how the guy didn't get the girl. And I think that I was at a different part in my life when I was watching these, where I was like, he didn't get your girl, it's so sad. Now I'm like, well, try harder, do better, I don't know.
And she was kind of horrible.
She was not good at all.
So there wasn't anything to be sad about, because she wasn't worth the trouble that he was feeling for his lost love.
Yeah, like he shouldn't have been so in love with her. I knew Autumn for 3.5 seconds. I already liked her more than Summer.
I agree with that. I am confused.
Yes.
Because this movie doesn't really explain what the point of the movie is. It shows them off and on dating, and then she's really dismissive of him for no apparent reason. They don't really explain why that is. And then it will show him just like devastated that she's not in his life anymore. But they won't show any scenes of them interacting in those moments for the most part. Then all of a sudden, she's married. The end. That's how I felt about this movie. Like, nothing happened. So it's 500 Days of Summer, showing his relationship with Summer over 500 days. But I feel like if you actually tallied up how many actual days they showed, it might have been 12. And
the thing is they were done dating by day like 203. They weren't even, which I get it, it's the story of him and Summer, or the story of his love for Summer or whatever.
But there was a good portion of that time where Summer wasn't even there.
Summer wasn't there, they weren't together. It was like a day 200 coming to the end of their relationship, and they're walking through IKEA, and he makes a joke about the tap not working. And she just kind of like rolls her eyes and walks away. And then it goes back to day 34. And that's the day that they're in IKEA, where they're talking about how the TV's broken and the sink's broken, and they're all laughing and having fun. I did enjoy those, because it did, that is where it did actually make sense, where it showed you where their relationship was or ended and where they were at the beginning, and it actually showed the direct comparison between the two. But you're right, the rest of it was just
filler.
Here's a scene of them together. Here's a scene of him crying in his bedroom alone. And I think a big thing of it was she wanted him to be more than a greeting card designer. Wanted him to express his talent in architecture, but he never had faith in himself. That is a big thing about it too, is that he was insecure about his architecture. He was insecure about his relationship with Summer, because he was so in love with her, and he knew that she wasn't in the same boat as far as any relationship goes. Those are the only things that I really picked out. I'm curious to know if boys or men are really like, they show this scene after the first time they have sex, where he wakes up in the morning and fountains are going off when he walks by, and he's dancing in the street, doing like kissing strangers' hands and dancing around, and then he's holding a little cartoon bird as if he's in like a Disney movie and he just kissed a princess. I'm curious to know if guys are actually like that to a degree, obviously not running through the streets holding fake birds, but I wonder if that's actually how it is for men, because I know that a lot of them are this kind of, they're tough and they don't show their emotions. I wonder if that's how it really feels when they, like, get the girl, whether it's sex or a date with or whatever. I wonder if that's how they really feel.
I mean, I would say yes. Will they admit it?
Never.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
I remember, like, one of my first times, like, my knees got really weak. That was kind of the first time that I noticed something was changing, you know, after that experience. So
you had feelings for this person.
Yeah, and I do think that those moments happen. I don't know if a whole flash mob happens right after, but I think guys have similar feelings. They just aren't as open about them. But with that flash mob scene, I think that's my favorite part of the whole movie is after the sex, he goes to the town, starts dancing, high-fiving, kissing people, and just really loving his life. But this movie is based off of reality, and that scene is not reality at all.
Ew.
So as much as I did love that scene, I felt it was really, like, out of place. Because, again, it had, like, the animated bird. It's just odd. It's just odd that that scene is there. And I wish that if that was what they were wanting to show, they should have had more scenes.
Of that fake reality.
Of that fake reality for him. Maybe even for Summer, and maybe even include their breakups and stuff into those hyper fantasy situations.
Yeah.
So to have just that one, it was kind of a letdown.
Speaking of that, it's a very dark, not a dark movie, but there's no sense of any, like, relief in it, of it just being a sad, kind of depressing movie. And that is, like, the one scene that isn't sad and depressing, but directly after, he walks into the elevator, yay, I just had sex and did a flash mob, and then the elevator doors close, and it flashes to a different day where they're broken up. So that happiness, that one bit of, like, happy relief that you get throughout the movie is quickly shattered by a depressed Tom. And other than that, it's so hard to keep interested in it because it is kind of depressing. Like, the songs, the mood, everything about it. Super depressing.
See, I didn't see it as depressing because I have a hard time understanding, based off what they showed, their relationship wasn't that in-depth. And because of that, them being broken up, him being depressed about it, didn't really hit a mark because they didn't really show them that much in love, in my opinion. Like, yes, the IKEA scene, really cute. The favorite part, mostly again, because it does show that kind of fantasy life of what if IKEA was their house and whatnot, and it was really cute. But outside of that, and the flash mob, you're right, it was a gloomy movie, and because it's hard to invest in someone who is constantly depressed about one thing and one thing only, it is a tough hour and 20 minutes to get through. Like, it's a pretty short movie, and it felt like it was 5 hours long.
I know.
Because not enough happens in it. And they have, like, karaoke scenes, but it's like, okay, after a couple karaoke scenes, it's the same thing. It's boring, nothing's happening.
I can't believe that I've sat through that movie so much and actually enjoyed it, because I would have just purchased this, like, as of the last year. So I don't know what made me see that and go, oh yeah, 500 Days of Summer, I need that in my collection. Like, no, I don't, actually.
So as I was watching this movie, though, I was really picking up little scenes here and there that I didn't care about, but there's little things that happened that I wanted to talk about. One of them was them playing Wii Tennis. I really miss Wii Tennis.
I love Wii Sports.
And all I could think about was playing the Wii, which in that scene is like, we should just play Wii games instead of watching this movie.
Have you ever played WarioWare?
Yeah, I love WarioWare.
I bought a Wii specifically, like, last year, specifically to play WarioWare, but it's so hard to find, like, in person. I'd have to order it, and I'm just...
Oh, do you have a Wii? Do you have a Wii now?
Yeah, I do.
Because I have WarioWare. We could just play it together.
Okay, well...
Problem solved.
Fuck watching another movie. WarioWare this bitch up.
I also was distracted when they went to, like, the DVD store by all the DVD sets of TV series. I'm like, oh, look, there's Buffy. There's How I Met Your Mother. Like, there's just so many things in the background. That was not one of them.
I was like, don't fool me. I want to know.
There's, like, King of the Hill, and there was Simpsons. Like, it was just so distracting. I'm like, I'd rather just guess what's in the background than watch this movie.
Yeah, it was not interesting at all. I don't, like I say, maybe I was just so depressed in my past that this was an equal movie to how I was feeling. But now, being happier in my life. Maybe this movie is just too depressing to be enjoyable for me.
I think when you're actually heartbroken, it is way more depressing than
Yes.
what they showed on this movie.
100%.
It's not as simple as just, oh, I'm not going to get out of bed right away. Oh, I'm at work and I'm just not going to smile. Like, it's deeper than that. It's harder
Very
than
much
that.
so. Very much so.
So I think if it wanted to be that movie, which there are depressing movies about heartbreak and breakups, they could have went way deeper than they did.
Mhm.
This is really superficial. This is as if this was his first crush he ever had in his entire life, and yet they're playing mid-20s, like around that age. It just wasn't hitting the mark based off of their ages, and what they were doing.
You could tell that they were trying to make him seem like the type to not typically get women by the way he dressed, by the way his hair was always down and scruffy, and just he didn't look like he took care of himself very well. And I think that was a big part that they were trying to show you, that he's grown. Like, as soon as he kind of starts to forget about summer and he's working on his architecture career, he puts on a suit and he slicks his hair back and he looks taken care of. But with that being said, that still doesn't give you, there's not enough substance in that. There's not enough character growth in that. The dude put on a fucking suit. Ooh, he's still in love with her, and he admits that when they're sitting on the bench and she's married.
And that's also like the end of the movie practically. There's a few minutes left after that. So it's very last minute. It's not fulfilling. And the fact that I watched this movie and I didn't even realize that she got married, like, that's a problem. That's a problem with this movie. Dee
mentioned something, and I'm like, well, you saw the husband at the wedding scene, and he's like, there was a wedding scene?
That's how, I was not committed to this movie. I was watching it, but my brain was, making a grocery list or something. It was not there. And, like, I remember the other wedding scene with the person they worked with, but not her own wedding.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. There was a lot of that where I was thinking about my Animal Crossing island and what I'm gonna do to it when I get on tonight, Fair.
But there was a few scenes that made me have some questions again. First one, very early on, he's breaking some plates, and I was just curious, have you ever broken a plate?
Not intentionally. Not for the fun of it.
Because it's not fun to break plates. So that whole scene, I was like, I don't think anyone would ever just smash plates.
Because they're sad about a breakup.
And, like, he didn't, like, throw it across the room. He wasn't, like, angry. He just, like, smashed it in front of him. Like, what if they got in your eye or something? That's a bigger issue now.
Well, and then his sister, his very young sister, just out of nowhere.
She's like 9, 10.
Yeah, just out of nowhere, comes over. Don't smash that plate. Okay.
And then gives him vodka.
Yeah. Does Mom know you're here? Does Mom know that you got a bottle of vodka?
Like, you're 10. Go play with your Hello Kitty. This movie also is kind of about the pitfalls of dating a coworker. And I feel that I know someone who has done that before. And they might have an opinion on that. What's it like dating a coworker?
All of my relationships that I've been in 3 serious relationships. I have at one point or another worked with every single one of them. So I'm very used to dating coworkers. I can tell you that the only one that would have worked is the one that I'm currently in a relationship with. That one I think would have been okay. The other 2, do not date your coworkers, okay?
Why?
Because you wake up next to your partner, and then you go to work with your partner, and then you go out to dinner with your partner, and then you come home to your partner, you fall asleep next to your partner, and it's a lot. Now, if you're with the right person, i.e. why I say I could do it now, then it wouldn't be so horrible. But when I was with the other relationships and working with them or having the same job as them, it definitely causes tension in what you think is right and what they think is right, and how you think things should be run versus how they think things should be run. Then, of course, people are always keeping an eye on you to make sure that you're behaving at work as if you're teenagers that are just gonna fuck like bunnies because you're together. Like, there's so much stress to being with someone that you work with, and I think it takes a special pair to work together. Like, when my boyfriend was my boss at work, and my main bosses are husband and wife. And I think that in that scenario, knowing what I know about the company, I still feel like I work with my boyfriend, because I hear everything and I'm always like, I know what to say. I know inputs. I know the business. I know everything about it. Don't date coworkers.
I actually worked for a couple who were boyfriend and girlfriend, and they owned the company, and it was super awkward. And like, they were good people, but the issue was every time they had a fight, it was brought to work. And it's awkward being in the position because you can't really be like, hey guys, don't do this.
Yeah.
They own the company. And I don't know how many times I'd walk in and have to ask them a question about something, and one of them's crying, or the door would be locked and they'd be like, you can't come in here. And it's like, I have a job to do. Like, you are a part of this business, and constantly their relationship seemed to be more important than the business. And I understand that. I think relationships are more important than jobs.
I agree, yeah.
But it's different when you're running a company and people rely on you to do their jobs. You have to put your personal stuff to the side.
100%. I think that goes without being in a relationship though as well. I think that anything personal happening in your life should be left. At one of my jobs, they physically came and painted a yellow line in front of the door. And they said, as soon as you cross that yellow line into the store, all of your personal issues are left outside. And if you want to go cry about it outside, around the corner, smoke a cigarette or whatever, you collect your feelings back once you pass that yellow line again. But as soon as you walk through the door, put a smile on. And I appreciated that, because they weren't telling us we couldn't cry about our problems. They just told us that if we're going to do it, let's not deal with a customer, you know?
They just sanctioned you off to a spot in the corner. I get it. I really do. And I don't know if I feel the same way that I agree with that completely. I think that the best jobs allow you somewhat to bring your personal life into it. Obviously, the drama of your life should not be the main focus when you're at work, especially when you're dealing with customers. But I've always really enjoyed places where there can be an open conversation about our personal lives when it's in a calm, respectful manner. I agree, people shouldn't be crying at work about their personal stuff, but I mean, I've definitely cried at work.
Well, no, and that's why I'm not saying that I think that you should just be this little, like, customer service robot. You should be able to go to your coworkers and talk about things, but you cannot let it impact the entire production of your job or your business. If you're an owner, you can't let it take over that.
Couples should just stay out of the workplace. It'll just make things that much easier. That much easier. So there's a part where Tom is talking about how holidays and greeting cards create false expectations on people in society. Do you think that's the case? Yeah, I guess. Why? That's not a solid answer. But I do think that, and I'm not saying I'm for or against it, I think holidays in general put expectations on mainly men in relationships, and they're expected to live up to it. What can go on a greeting card that can't be said by mouth? But there's this expectation that on Valentine's Day you get me a box of chocolates and a card and a bouquet of flowers, or on Mother's Day, I need a card and breakfast in bed. And it's like, there's so many, I don't know how, there's so much expectation to be put on all of these things when it's just as easy to go up to your significant other and go like, I'd rather hear I love and appreciate you every single day of the year and not receive flowers on Valentine's Day than receive flowers on Valentine's Day and not be given anything else throughout the year. But is that the greeting card's fault? Is that the holiday's fault? Or is that just expectations put on us from our families? But I think that it has to start with either the holiday or the greeting card, right? Let's look at the greeting card. It wouldn't be a family situation. It's the fact that there's a holiday, and the expectation of the holiday is to wish somebody a Merry Christmas or Happy Valentine's Day or what have you. And then that's when Hallmark happens, and they're like, oh, instead of telling your lover Happy Valentine's Day, give them a piece of paper with Snoopy holding a heart on it
Instead, now over the years, it's become an expectation that you buy them a card because that's what it means to have a Valentine's Day. So I don't think that it started with families or society or whatever. It started with there's a holiday and you're expected to do something about that holiday, and with that holiday, you give presents that include a greeting card. Why? Why do you need that? It doesn't make sense.
I mean, I'm kind of torn because I don't tend to buy greeting cards, or
never do.
Ever. I feel it's quite wasteful. People throw it in the garbage anyways. You just killed a tree for nothing. But I do see the sentiment behind it. I see why people, like you said, why can't people say what they feel instead of having it written down on a card? Mm-hmm. Some people don't have the vocabulary or the skills to write what they're feeling. They have a hard time with that. Mm-hmm. So I think a card can give someone the opportunity to say what they're feeling without having to say it. So I see the merit of cards, but I don't think they're inherently bad. I really think it's the pressure that we put on it. I think it's ourselves, that we give power to these holidays. And we could easily say, we're not doing this. We're not doing presents. And coming from, when I started dating many years ago now, there was that pressure of you have to give this gift. You have to court this person. But then as years pass on, you realize that it's not about the gifts. It's not about the cards. No. They're nice little things to get, but they're not the testament of your love. So I know we've had many Christmases where we're like, money is tough. We don't need gifts. We love each other. That's more than enough. And we can celebrate whenever. And that's happened for like Valentine's Day, even birthdays. If we know we're busy on that weekend and we can't celebrate, we have no problem moving it to a different date. There's no need to have things be within these structured boxes. We always find time to share our love in ways that is not defined by what we give each other physically. And it's always more about experiences and the emotion that goes behind creating our life together. That's more important for us than what a greeting card can say.
100%. And you guys have been together a long time, so I think it's a great relationship to take advice from. With you saying that, I guess maybe I do look at it a certain way too, because since I was 13, me and my family decided that Christmas isn't about presents, and I was 13 years old. I was asking for bedding for my room. Like, I was done with the toys.
I still want toys.
I knew about Santa,
What? Am I just finding this out right now?
Santa is real. Me and my sister chose to believe in Santa after I was done believing in Santa, so he's real.
Good.
But we decided that my favorite part as a 13-year-old of Christmas was making breakfast with my sister at 6:30 in the morning and just being awake and feeling the warm house, but the cold tile. Those were the things that I loved about it. And that's when we decided that it wasn't worth doing presents for. It wasn't worth wasting all of this money for these trivial things that, I'm going to grow out of in a year, or they're not going to matter to me, but I'm always going to have those memories of waking up and making breakfast with my sister. I don't care about thank yous. I care about I appreciate yous, because I'm in the same way where I don't need a holiday to give something to somebody. I'd rather just see it in a store and go, I know someone who will really like that, and buy it and give it to them to let them know I was thinking about them. I don't need it to be, what's the next holiday that I can save this present for? No, I'm just going to give it to you because I love and care about you.
100%. I agree with that. I hate when someone gives you a card, and this is more of like a work card, like an anniversary, or you're leaving and they decide to give you a card. There's nothing I hate more than someone signing a card and not actually leaving a message.
Mm-hmm. They just have the blurb
or they just be like, nice knowing you, or like they put their name on it. If you're not going to put a message into a card, I really don't need to have that card from you then. I want to have that personalized message of why you felt the urge to give me a card or to sign it. Like, I remember it was my birthday, and this was a recent job, and I thought I was close to people, and I was really excited to get this birthday card from them. They gave it to me, all smiles, and I swear almost out of everyone, there was maybe 15 people, 13 out of 15 just said like, happy birthday. I really thought we were closer than just a basic happy birthday. And then 3 of them didn't even put their names on it. They just wrote happy birthday.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just, oddly enough, like it hurt in a sense. because I thought I was closer to these people, and clearly I wasn't. And I don't see the point of why you even bothered. Why did you feel the need to sign this? Or not even just write happy birthday in it when it already said happy birthday on the front. Like, would you give a card and not sign it?
No, I do put a personalized message in a card. It's never just happy birthday. Even if it's happy birthday with a nickname only I call that person. I always make sure to personalize it a little bit. But at the same sense, I don't want to look, you can look around my house right now and see cards that I have from Christmases and thank yous and whatever. I do keep cards. I don't want to hold that significance. I don't want to think that like, oh my gosh, people don't like me because of what's written in it. I'm not saying that's what you thought, but I don't want to hold that to myself where I have to look at a card and it doesn't have a message to me and I'm like, oh, that person doesn't like me, right? It's too much for a greeting card, in my opinion, right? That's why I don't buy people cards, really. I'd rather have a speech prepared and give somebody a gift with a speech of why I'm gifting it or happy birthday, and I'd rather do it in person than give them a card.
I think for me, it wasn't that I was devastated that there wasn't a personalized message for me from most of the people. I think I just really enjoy people and I feel close to people and maybe they don't feel the same way. And it's a hard thing to notice when what I'm expecting from someone is not returned back.
What you would give to somebody.
Oh, completely. Because if I had written that card, for sure there would have been something personalized in it. It would not have been a basic writing. You're right, it doesn't mean they didn't like me, but it just shows that my level of energy towards someone else may not be given back to me. And in that point in time, yeah, it did hurt, but this year's been a big growth period, and I know that that's not the case. And that it's overthinking it, and that is what most problems come from, is overthinking it.
Yeah.
So there's something that I felt while I was watching this movie. When I watch movies, I do think about the script, and I think about who is the person that wrote this movie? Why did they write this movie? Who did they write this movie for? I couldn't guess some of this for this movie. Like, I don't know who this movie was written for. I don't think it really showed many problems. It didn't help many problems. But there's one thing that I could easily tell while watching this movie is that it was written by a man. I could just feel that there was nothing in this movie that was a woman. It wasn't sincere, it wasn't loving, it wasn't emotional, and they kept using terms like PMS or anal girl. And I'm like, there's no way a woman wrote this. There's no way, because this movie's supposed to be a romantic comedy, and it's not really romantic, and it's not very comedic.
It's not comedic at all.
And I could just tell, and then after asking you who wrote this movie, it was two guys, and it shows. It sounds like this was written by two guys who don't know what love is, who don't know what relationships are, and are putting the blame mostly on women. There's numerous times where they call her a bitch, and they really, even though she wasn't the most likable character, she didn't do anything that could be defined as a bitch to me. She just said, I don't want to be in a relationship with you, I just want to be friends. That's kind of what she said numerous times. That's not her being a bitch, that's her being upfront with her feelings about what she wants.
Well, yeah, and it seems that they created it to maybe a scenario that one of them had where a girl straight up told them that they didn't want to be in a relationship and this could have been the road that it took. So they're playing it from the male's perspective, obviously, but they didn't have any women's say on what could be on the female side of this story.
And that's fine, because there's so many movies out there that are from the woman perspective, written by females. And so it's refreshing to have a movie that is from the male perspective, written by a man. But this is written from a man's perspective that clearly has not been in a relationship, who has had fantasy relationships, which is why most of that movie comes off as a fantasy. There's even a part where it has a split screen and it says, this is the reality of my relationship, this is my expectation of a relationship. And I'm watching this and thinking, yep, this is a man who has never been in love before. This is a man who thinks he knows what relationships are, but they're not. So I would be curious to know who these men are in their real life, because I don't think it was that great of a story. And I think it's because they didn't have that womanly touch in it. It was very one-sided and depressing, and I'm sad and it's her fault. And at the end, okay, it's still her fault, but I feel better about it. Oh, there's a new girl? I like this new girl. The end.
So I did some Googling here. And one of the writers doesn't appear to ever have been married or have a spouse. Obviously don't know about relationships, but one of them only got married a year after the movie was released. So I think, who knows how long they were together before that, but it really does go to show that from a person who doesn't seem to have any spouses and a person who only got married after the fact of this movie, that is their perspective on it. And and that's why I don't mind it being from the male perspective, but they could have gotten some womanly input on how to make how to make it flow more. I don't hate the ending of what they do. I get that it's some metaphor of let's turn the page of summer, we're forgetting about summer because the new season is autumn, the girl's name's Autumn, yada yada. I don't, it's cute, I don't hate it, but it's the fact that 3 seconds ago in a scene, it's him still evidently being in love with Summer after finding out she's married, and then he's just at a job interview 3 seconds later, which
he's fine.
He's fine, and he's met Autumn, and now seasons have changed and he's on to Autumn. There is no progression into him getting over Summer. He just gets over Summer and moves on to Autumn.
Within a couple minutes.
Yeah.
And I think also if they had just given reasons why Summer didn't want to pursue a relationship, they kind of touch upon it at the end when she's married. She mentions stuff like, you didn't know yourself, and this guy that I married was more interested in the things I was, and I get that, but every time that he asked her, hey, let's do this, and she'd be like, no, and he'd be like, why? And she'd be like, no reason. And that happened numerous times.
Yeah.
And I think that is because, again, I feel they didn't have the experience to write that woman part and give her the emotions that she needed to have in those scenes.
What the reason was.
Mm-hmm. Did they have... I don't think the writers had a reason. I think they just wanted this guy to be sad that she was unachievable.
Hopelessly devoted to somebody. Yeah.
So it was very obvious it was written by men, and it took away the experience for me.
I do really love one line that Summer says at the end on the bench. He kept asking, why were you able to marry this guy, but you weren't able to marry me? And she said something like, one day I woke up and I just knew. And he said, what did you know? And she says, I knew what I wasn't sure of with you, or something along those lines. And I thought that was really sweet in the sense of any breakup, no matter what you guys broke up for, you cannot be upset about that person moving on and finding better things, because they see something in somebody else that you weren't able to give them.
She talked about kind of destiny, and she met her husband, I think, at a coffee shop.
Yes.
And she was reading a book, and she said, what if I had not been there that day? What if I went to a movie instead? What if I had been 10 minutes late to go to the coffee shop? I would never have met him. So I think everything happens for a reason. And I think that's true. I think that destiny, the universe, whatever you want to call it, puts us where we have to be when we have to be there. Good or bad, we have to learn from those experiences. And it'll all work out if we are open to letting whatever comes into us come into us.
One thing, I very much believe in everything happens for a reason, and I love to follow what the universe has in store for me. And I think the craziest sign that I've ever received was I was separated from my husband, and we were trying to make things work, and one night he finally said that we should get divorced. I was devastated. And so I go to work the next day, and a coworker comes up to me and he says that him and his girlfriend broke up the night before, the same day. Well, that is now the person that I'm dating. That, to me, that was the universe going like, you tried to make this work for X amount of months after your divorce or after your separation. And now the person, disclaimer, I liked this guy that I worked with for months, and it was like, oh, well, your husband wants a divorce? Cool. The person that you like is now single, and he likes you too, and so, right? Like, it really, Destiny does have a way of finding you, and I think you do have to be open to the universe, and I think you have to look and go, oh my gosh, there's no way that this happened. Like, this is the universe. Every time something happens, you can't just think of it as a coincidence. You do have to live into that and go, no, that's destiny. That means something. And play it out and see what happens, because the universe does have something in store for you. It does.
It does. It's not this movie, but...
Don't watch this movie. It's got an 85% Rotten Tomatoes score.
Which I'm shocked by, but I know a lot of people review things and they're not always right. So
that is true.
People are not going to agree with us either.
If I was on the Rotten Tomatoes board and the first time I watched this movie, I would have given it a high score too.
And that's the thing.
Today, not so much.
Maybe at the time it was seen as a better movie. Nowadays, I just feel it can't be.
I agree. Tom goes on a blind date with a girl, and they're at this bar singing karaoke. Well, he's singing karaoke, very drunk, and the date gets up and walks away. He says, good riddance to ya. You laugh, but you say, it wasn't because of the movie, it was just bad timing, and I thought that you were laughing, and I was happy, but you weren't laughing, so D'Artagnan, why did you laugh?
Okay, so there is a backstory to this. So about 5 seconds before the karaoke scene started, you said to me, wow, this movie is boring. And then, so keep in mind, 5 seconds before that, I was thinking about my rating already for this movie. And I was thinking, I don't want Marissa to think that I hate all of her movies. So I might just give this one a higher rating because I like the actors in it. And then you told me it was boring. And I was like, wait, I don't have to lie now. This is so great. And so I just started laughing.
Okay, here's the thing. I'm not gonna like all of your movies, and you're not gonna like any of mine.
No, that's not fair. That's not fair. I might. I'm looking for that movie that charms me. I know you have something that will charm me. And I really thought this might be the one. You know, you were pumping it up, and
I thought it was the one. Deceived me.
And, you know, at the beginning I was interested in the 500 days and what that would entail, and seeing the relationship grow and fall apart and grow and then fall apart and grow, and that didn't happen, but I was ready for it. And I'm like, this could be the one that I'm gonna like. I'm gonna like this movie. And then it kept going, and I'm like, oh, this is like one of the ones I hate the most. And then you said what you said, and I'm like, oh, thank God I'm free. I can say what I want to say, and she won't be mad. So yeah, that's why I laugh.
You know what? I think we're pretty clear at where this movie's gonna go, so I think we just jump right into our ratings. Okay. Every movie we have has a rating system. So you've got 5 different topics, all rated 1 to 3. Total score being 15 for each movie. And let's start with the edge of seat rating.
Yeah, that's gonna be a 1. This movie is hard to get through, and there's almost nothing pulling you through this movie.
Yeah, I agree. If we could give it a 0, it would have been a minus points, because there was so many times, like, I was scrolling through Skip the Dishes for 25 minutes because it was more interesting than what was happening on the screen.
Nothing happens in this movie. Nothing.
Okay, the acting.
I gave it 1.5.
There you go.
Yeah. I do like Zoe and Joseph. I think that they are fine actors, but they weren't given much to work with yet again. And it's hard to give it high marks when the movie is so boring. And is that their fault? I don't think it is per se, but it's just not a good movie. So the acting, I think, just automatically brings it down. Mm-hmm. So 1.5.
I gave it a 2, and I looked at it the same way that you did, where they weren't given much to work with, but at the same time, it's not like it was horrible to watch because of the acting. It was horrible to watch because the movie sucked. I think the acting was good. Climax and ending.
In one of our previous podcasts, you said to me, what was the climax? And now I'm going to ask you, what was the climax? I know the ending, but...
Yeah.
1.
1 as well, and I don't think after the podcast we just had, we have to explain why. The script.
Like I said before, you could tell it was written by 2 men who have never been in love. No offense, guys. You're probably sweet people. But a 1.
I also give it a 1, and that's, that goes with the 2 for acting kind of took over that, where it's like, I can't give the script anything because the actors acting really held this movie together. The scripts did nothing. The acting is what held it. And
would you watch it again?
I think we can answer this at the same time. 3, 2, 1. Not a chance will I ever watch that again.
Yeah, that's going in the garbage the minute we're done.
So that totals me at a 6 out of 15.
And I got a 5.5.
So that is an 11.5 out of a possible 30. That does not replace anything on our top 4, and I believe that might be that definitely is our lowest scored movie of season 1 so far.
Literally, and the lowest it can get is 10, so I mean, it's bottom of the barrel.
So the acting and what did you give? What was your 1.5?
It was the acting.
The acting? Oh, the acting is the only thing keeping this from a bottom of the barrel score.
Which is not saying a lot.
Holy, yeah, by 1.5 marks is what it's keeping it up.
That's a fail.
That is a huge, huge fail. Sorry, 500 Days of Summer.
Garbage.
Thanks for listening to Vantage Revival.